Hello, hope you can hear me. Some waves just came in. They're waves from a boat, so it's not like it's wind waves. No white caps. So it should die down in just a second. I just noticed as I started filming. So I'm Dave, and I'm here to talk about Dave's Picks Volume 31, the third one of 2019. I think it's been an exciting year so far, good variety. We started the year with that tremendous 1977 Grateful Dead show, followed it up with some wonderful Pigpen from January 2nd, 1970 with the bonus disc, which had some January 3rd music that's from the Fillmore East. And now we're following that up with some very early Brent Midland Grateful Dead. Now, if you're watching this, you might already know, I think you might have already seen the announcement, that the next Dave's Picks is from December 3rd, 1979, a really, really good show. So, you know, I like it. We've got the Keith and Donna era in the first one of the year, then we got the Pigpen with Talkin Stanton for the second one, number 30, and then 31, we've got this incredible Brent show, and we've just put the finishing touches on 32. Well, we haven't mastered it or anything, but we've kind of settled on the show, so we're pretty set on that one. So I think there's been some really good variety this year, and then you add the Warfield 1980 acoustic stuff with Brent, really great stuff, and the Fillmore West 228 1969 on vinyl. So we've got some really good variety. Now, we haven't announced the box set for 2019, and that could throw the whole balance of power kind of out the window. Maybe not, I don't know. Well, I do, but wait for Rhino to, I'm not being coy, I just like Rhino to do their announcements because they do them very, very well. Better than I do, I'll tell you that. So Dave's Picks, Volume 31. We worked on this one for a very long time. We always put, I know we put a lot of work into all of our releases. We really make sure that it's the right one for this time. And we were intent on getting a Brent show out in 2019 as part of the Dave's Picks series. Doesn't always happen. We generally do try to focus on something from all eras, whether that's a Keith and Donna with the two drummers, Keith and Donna with only one drummer, or Pigpen, or the Brent era, or even the later era. We do always go into the year kind of looking at spreading out the balance of the eras, and it doesn't always happen, obviously, but we do try to do that. But then we also have other releases like Warfield, you know, Spring 90 box set. We hit a lot of Brent Midland with the two Spring 90 boxes. 30 Trips Around the Sun got a lot of later stuff out. So we do try to spread things around. Doesn't always work out quite that way because we just get inspired by the music we're listening to, and that can be the music that we're focused on right now. Dave's Picks 31, early Brent. He joined the band in April of 1979, and he went on a tour in May. The summer was kind of more sporadic. They didn't do kind of a big tour, but they did a lot of shows around. And then in August, they did the first shows at the Kaiser. Well, it was the Oakland Auditorium Arena at the time. Red Rocks, McNichols Arena. Then they started touring very, very actively in the fall. They did a really good tour. That culminated with those short thing with the Madison Square Garden shows in September of '79, and then there's the incredible October-November tour, which I loved. It runs from the end of October through the first 2 weeks or so of November, and then they did the Thanksgiving shows down in Southern California, in San Diego and Los Angeles. And then, right after those shows, they started the December tour, another 2-week run. And then they ended the year with that incredible 5-night run at the Kaiser, at the Oakland Auditorium Arena. So, December, playing some incredible shows. You think of shows like the Stanley Theater on December 1st. You go back a month, you think of Cape Cod, you think of Buffalo, Cap Center. The Philly shows in November, on the 5th and 6th of November. They were playing at an extremely high level, and they... It's a loud airplane. So they were playing really high-level Grateful Dead. They were stretching things out too. Songs like Terrapin Station, Shakedown Street, Scarlet Fire. You think of 11-179 at Nassau a month before this new Dave's Picks. They were really stretching things out. And speaking of long Scarlet Fires, we'll get to that in a second, but our new release has a tremendously long one. So we were focused on doing something from the early Brent era, from the second half of '79 through '80, and I had my ears on some good '80 material that might come out later on. Won't be the next one for sure, but So we kind of settled on the fall of '79, specifically the December tour. Now, a couple of the shows on the tour are, I don't want to use the phrase unreleasable because of sound quality issues, but the mixes on a couple of the shows are not, they're not great. That's a sound mix thing. Performances are great. So we really focused on a good kind of 6 or 7 shows, and then kind of narrowed that down to the Uptown Theater shows. And the one show that I have always come back to as the one in terms of the entire show was the first night, the one we're releasing, 12/3/79. But in saying that, the third night, 12/5/79, has a tremendous second set, just as good as the one from the one we're releasing. The first set, though, I don't think is quite as high energy, is quite as well played as the one from 12/3/79, and really that's what kind of tilted the balance on this one. I was really focused on one of the two. The middle night, 12/4, is a very laid-back, mellow show. It's really good, but it's really mellow. There is a really great jam in the second set. We'll get to that in a minute. It's a bit of a special thing for that somebody had suggested as a really wonderful piece of music from a night that is otherwise pretty good. Perhaps likely not releasable, but this jam is really interesting. So we'll get to that in a minute. But the third night has this incredible second set focused on Shakedown Street and a great big other one and a He's Gone. Really great show. The first night, though, has a first set that really equals that second set from the show that we're releasing, which is to say, it's kind of got all 3 parts of the show that are really good and really interesting. Got a great first set, a great first half of the second set, and then a really cool second half of the second set, the post-space sequence of the show. So the first set filled with highlights. It's one of these ones where the performance is one after another. In an era when the first sets were generally pretty good, sometimes they really stood out, and this is a real standout. It's got the Alabama Promised Land show opener, which is pretty common for the time, but there's a few things to note that are really high for me. Is there's a Brown-Eyed Women and a Ramble on Rose. And there's something about shows when those 2 songs were played, it's not that uncommon, but when they pull out these 2 Europe 72 gems and play them in the same first set, there's something about shows when I see that on a set list, I mean, I never assume it's going to be a good performance. I'm not a set list person. I've talked about this before. I don't care what they play. I care about how they play it. Hear that? And so this one has a Brown-Eyed Women and a Ramble on Rose, and both of them are played really well. Other highlights of this set, and there are a lot. There's a really incredible It's All Over Now. The first time I heard it, or the first time I really played it really loudly and really got into this It's All Over Now 6 or 8 months ago, and I've heard it this show many times. I always like this All Over Now, but you know, kind of one of those ones that gets you out of your chair and gets you up and dancing. It literally did that. In my studio space where I do a lot of my louder listening, I've been known to get up and move sometimes, and that's kind of a sign that the band has really got the swing going that night, and they're really on. And so you hear it during It's All Over Now. There's also a really great Jack-A-Row, which isn't on a lot of set lists. There's a tremendous Lazy Lightning Supplication. I mean, I'm throwing out these adjectives like everything is tremendous and wonderful and amazing and great. It really is one of those shows that warrants a lot of adjectives to describe each individual song. So we get this great Jack-A-Row, great Lazy Lightning Supplication, an extremely long version of Althea. Now, Althea was one of the newer songs that would appear 6 months later, 5 months later on Go to Heaven. But it was really expanded in the early days in '79, where they just kind of repeated the jam, and which is to say they doubled it, which is, I mean, always a good thing. So I'm vacillating between sunglasses on and sunglasses off because it's one of those days where I think both work. The sun's right there, but I mean, I also like not wearing sunglasses sometimes. Great Lazy Lightning Supplication towards the end of the set. The Althea, big Althea. Now the first set ends with an absolutely ripping, there we go with the adjectives, absolutely ripping version of The Music Never Stopped. A song that was, I think, played really well in '78, '79. It kind of cooled down a little bit as they got into the '80s in terms of the big jam at the end. This is still a distinctly 1978 jam, and you'll hear it. They just keep it going, and it blows the roof off the place. Now the Uptown Theater, by the way, The Dead in 71, 76, 77, they'd been playing the Auditorium Theater in Chicago. And then in 78, they started playing the Uptown Theater. Much bigger venue, old. If you get a chance, it's been closed for, I think, decades. But I do think it's in the... I mean, I keep reading stories that they're getting funding, or they've got the funding, whether it's through the city of Chicago or it's a private nonprofit, or a nonprofit. But they're definitely getting some funding to get the Uptown up and running again. Beautiful. It's an old movie palace, maybe a vaudeville house. I don't know what else they used it for back in the day, but it is spectacular. It's got balconies, and it's one of these places where every square inch of it is interesting. And I've seen a lot of pictures both from the stage looking up at the audience, and then from the balcony looking down on the seats and the stage and the proscenium arch and the little Lincoln balconies, and it's really, really beautiful. And again, every square inch, something is interesting about it. It's not just, a concrete block with a bunch of seats in it. It's really nice. So if you get a chance, maybe put this on pause and or maybe open another browser window. Listen to me. I'm all technological. And take a look at the Uptown Theater, because it is a gorgeous, gorgeous building. So, and I say blow the roof off the place, maybe it did, I don't know. So in 78, 79, 80, the Dead played and 81, the Dead played the Uptown a lot, and then they were done there. I think the last shows there were February 26, 27, 28 of 81. And then after that, they would play more places like Rosemont Horizon, and where else? Oh, UIC Pavilion, and then later years Tinley Park and Alpine Valley for the outdoor shows near Chicago, Soldier Field in 91 onward. But the Dead used to have a really cool history of smaller theaters in Chicago, and they do multi-night runs, and they'd always seem to play pretty darn well. So anyhow, the first set in the books, long first set, clocks in at over 70 minutes, I think, 73, 74. It's a long one. The second set, I mean, as typical of the era, is where it's at. So they open up with, I think I mentioned, a massive Scarlet Fire, and it's a Scarlet Fire that has all three elements: the Scarlet Begonias, the jam, transitional jam going to fire, and the Fire on the Mountain in particular, are outrageous. All three of them are seriously upper echelon Scarlet Fires. One of the ones that if I was DJing a Grateful Dead dance party and I wanted to throw a Scarlet Fire in there, this would be given top consideration with a few others that are the obvious ones. This one I think will probably become one of your obvious go-to Scarlet Fires as you get to know it a little better. Terrific Scarlet Begonias, the energy's on, they nail everything, it's just really, really perfect. The transitional jam is mellow and smooth and beautiful, and then it just falls into Fire on the Mountain. It doesn't really fall, it kind of takes a little bit to get going. But then the Fire on the Mountain is extremely long, I'm thinking like 16 or 17 minutes long. The whole thing clocks in at close to 28 minutes, I think, the Scarlet Fire. Then, kind of typical of the era, barrels into the Bob Weir song in this slot, Samson and Delilah. Really good. And then we get another fairly typical sequence from the era. We get a Terrapin Station into playing in the band before they went into drums. Now the Terrapin is interesting because it's incredibly well played, precision, very slowly played, the tempo of it, but I like it because it allows us to really hear the nuances of what's going on, and you kind of think, wow, they're really bringing this Terrapin Station, the tempo down, but they bring it up at the end, not the tempo, but the power of it, and then it falls into playing in the band with a great playing in the band jam. I don't think it's any secret that I love playing in the band. I mean, it's one of my favorites, and I love it because I love the time signature of the song. I love the song part of it, the intro 3 minutes, but the jam, it was always kind of focused in terms of you knew you were in a playing in the band jam, whereas a Dark Star could sound like space, or kind of like the other one would always sound like the other one. No matter how deep in it you were, you knew you were in the other one. Playing in the band is a similar kind of thing. So we've got this great playing in the band that goes on for quite some time, 12, 13 minutes maybe, and it's got some really good moments in it. I mean, it's not Seattle 74 in terms of the moments where they're very distinct parts, but there are some really chaotic, in a good way, controlled chaos, I guess we'd call it. Some really good moments like that. And then that goes into drums in space. The drums is pretty good, it's really good, it's pretty long. The drums is pretty long for the era, but then it goes into a very short space when we get onto disc 3. And then the post space sequence is one of the more unique ones of the era. They come out of space with Lost Sailor, Saint of Circumstance, which they did a few times, but not that often. Again, these are new songs going back to August of '79. There would be centerpiece songs of Go to Heaven in April, end of April of '80 when it came out. And they'd be very important songs for really the first half of the 1980s up until '85. They dropped Lost Sailor on the spring tour of 1986. And they kept Saint of Circumstance around very sporadically for the next 10 years. I saw over 100 shows and only saw Saint of Circumstance twice. I saw it once in Paris in 1990, and then once in, I saw it 3 times. I saw it once in Albany, New York in '91, and then a few nights later I saw it again at Nassau Coliseum in March of '91, and that was it. So 3 times out of over 100 shows, and there are people who are seeing, let's say, the same 100 shows from 1981 to '85, and they probably saw it at 40 or whatever. A lot of their shows, if they were going to shows in '79, '80, '81, they probably saw it at 80 of their shows. But yeah, so it was one of these things. So we get this great Sailor Saint, and it is really good, that falls into Wharf Rat. Now, this is a very beautiful Wharf Rat. It's very similar to the Terrapin Station in that it's very methodical, it's very precision, it's very beautifully played. There's one kind of little miscue that's kind of organ related. I don't know what happened. Somebody hits a bum note, and then, I mean, it's 5 seconds of a 11-minute song, 10-minute song that is irrelevant. But I stick on that because I'm like, oh, but then they catch it and they fix it, and it's really good. And then, this is crazy. They end, and it's funny because you think of Binghamton, 77, 11/6/77. That ends with the big truckin'. This does the same thing. So here we are 2 years later after the Binghamton 11/6/77 show, and ending a show with truckin' wasn't unheard of, but it was very rare. And so they end with truckin', and they bring the jam up, and again, we talked earlier about blowing the roof off the place. This truckin' blows the roof off the place. Like, they nail the big explosion at the end. And then they keep the jam going, and it's kind of like they don't know how to end it because they're not used to ending a set with truckin', but they end it in huge style. Really good. So you got this great truckin' to end the, really great truckin'. Again, another one of these kind of Grateful Dead dance party things where you get people out on the dance floor because the swing is really there, but then it's also really unique. And that's what I love about Grateful Dead music is how great it is, but also how unique moments can be, and most moments are in the Dead world. And then an encore to kind of get out because we have 2 more nights to play. Johnny Be Good, nice and easy. It's actually a good Johnny Be Good. A lot of them kind of sound the same. This one's got some really ripping. They certainly had enough energy left for some rock and roll. This was not a ballad show to end the second set. Now, we mentioned this earlier. 12/4/79, the next night. That's the show. I could really see 12/3 coming out someday. Sorry, 12/5, the final night. 12/4, I don't think so. But the jam in the second set, estimated profit into, and what are you guessing? Eyes of the World, right? Or maybe He's Gone. Something like that. Well, this one, very rare, estimated goes into Franklin's Tower. And both are really good. The estimated is outstanding, as they all were in 1979. Really one of my favorite Bob Weir, John Barlow songs. It's up there with Feel Like a Stranger, My Brother Esau, Throwing Stones. These are really upper echelon Grateful Dead songs. So we get this great estimated profit into a bouncing, ripping version of Franklin's Tower. And then it goes into a 10-minute, completely improvised jam. And a very good friend of mine, very dear friend, with whom I consult on a lot of these Dave's picks and other release ideas. We talked about this show in particular. We talked about 12/3 and how great it was, and 12/5, how great the second set was, and the first set's pretty good, but not quite as good as 12/3. And we talked about 12/4, and in his words, the jam out of Franklin's Tower is probably one of the best things of the whole 3-night run. And it's unfortunate because it's in a show that's good, but it's not outrageous. And so what we've done, and we don't do this very often on the Dave's Picks, we've included some bonus material from 12/4/79, estimated Franklin's Tower, and the big jam coming out of Franklin's. The whole sequence is over a half hour, so you kind of get this great show, 12/3/79 plus that. So this is an interesting one. Jeffrey Norman, who has been doing every Dick's Picks, every road trips except for one, every Dave's Picks. So how many of those? 30, 67, 77, it's about 85 albums in total. You know, all the box sets that Jeffrey's done and all the other special releases, it totals in the hundreds. But for the Dick's Picks and the road trips and the Dave's Picks, Jeffrey has done every single one of them, and he will continue to do every one going forward too. And you'll hear about this soon. We've been working on this box set for 2019 for a long time, going back to December. Here we are at the end of June of 2019, and we just finished it a week ago. Well, actually, parts of it aren't even finished, the box set. But you'll hear about this on, I think, August 1st, so do tune in to the box set info. But Jeffrey was so busy working on the new box set, and he's been working 6 days a week. I mean, I was getting emails from him virtually every night at 7 or 8 every night, and at 9:30 in the morning. So Jeffrey, for the first time in the Dave's Picks and the Dick's Picks series, there was one road trips that he couldn't do for a very similar reason. He was working on another project. Jeffrey couldn't do this one, but rest assured, Dave Glasser, you've, I'm sure, seen the name. He's been working with us for 15 years. He started out doing our surround sound mastering on our Closing of Winterland DVD, Grateful Dead movie DVD, things like that. But Dave has done most, if not all, in the last decade of Grateful Dead studio releases. Dave is a Grammy winner, Boulder, Colorado mastering engineer at Airshow Mastering. And so Dave stepped in and did this one. He has done so many projects for us. He's a terrific collaborator. He's an outstanding mastering engineer. And he's a really good guy. And you know what? Personality goes far. So Dave, you did a great job on this. And I just want everyone to know that when you see Dave's name in here and not Jeffrey's, rest assured Jeffrey will be doing them all going forward. He was just too busy on the box set, which is really good. Dave also worked on that. So Dave did this one, and we just want to thank Dave for stepping in on this one, doing such a magnificent job. The CDs were mastered from the cassette masters, from the PA source, recorded by Dan Healy. They sound really good. PA tapes can be hit or miss. Sometimes they're lacking an instrument or there's too much of something. These are really well balanced. Cassettes are not quite as robust as a reel-to-reel tape, but the cassettes they're more than fine. They're really good. If you've heard board tapes from '79, think of 1027. 79 in Cape Cod or 12-1 in Pittsburgh. This is kind of what we're dealing with, which is to say they sound really good. Rest assured, they're really, really hot tapes. So I guess that's it. So that's my little Dave's Picks volume 31. 32 will come out in a few months. We got a box set coming out pretty soon. Rhino will announce that. It's really good. We've been working on this one for about a year and a half. We kind of put the ideas together, and we've been working on the music side of things for over 6 months, going back to November, December, as I said, with Jeffrey and Dave, and lots of other people working on this one. It's a really good one. What else do we have this year? Oh, we got. It's a good year. Next year is even better. And I mean, I've been saying this since 2004 or 5 when we put out the Fillmore West box set, and I said, how are we going to top this? And I mean, in my opinion, I look on my shelf as a Deadhead and I look at what we've done. I feel that we always do top ourselves. And then we put something out like the Europe 72 box set. How are we going to top this? And then we put out the 30 trips. How are we going to top this? We got the Spring 90 boxes. We got the Cornell box and Veneta. This year's box is very special. Hi, puppy. So it's a really good year. 2020, we've got really big plans. Again, good variety, which is something I love. I love the variety of Grateful Dead music, whether it's a Pigpen era thing, or Brent, or Vince, or Keith and Donna, or the 2 drummers, or the 1 drummer, or even, you know, all of it. I mean, that's what I love about Dead music. I can listen to something different every day, and I do, actually, most days. Thank you for listening. I'm at my favorite beach. There's a really friendly dog barking. He's in the water. This is my favorite beach around, and it's nice and quiet today, so you're either lucky that you get to hear me, or you're unlucky that you get to hear me, depending how you look at it. And I don't know if you saw any birds behind me. I certainly didn't, because I wasn't looking back there. I was looking at you. Oh, that dog was getting its picture taken, and that's why I was barking. I don't think it wanted its picture taken. And then another dog started barking. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me. I don't know how long this one is. It feels like it might be a little longer. Got a lot to say. It's what a beautiful day at a beautiful beach. with a lot of coffee does. So thank you for listening. Dave's Picks 31, available at dead.net. They generally sell out maybe less than a day, so I would maybe put this on pause. I mean, it's a little late now because we're over, but head over to dead.net because they will sell it. This is a really good one. It's early Brent Midland, and yeah, it's a 1970 show, but let's just call it an 80s show because it's 4 weeks from the 80s, and it features Brent. So for Grateful Dead history, it's kind of more of a 80s show, even though it's from the 70s. Just like the Dave's Picks 30 from the Fillmore East. It's kind of a 60s show, even though it's from 1970, but it's January 2nd, and it features that kind of 1969 sound. Thank you for listening. Really, again, I try to remember to say this every time, but thank you for supporting the series. We love doing it. We really do. We put a lot of work into it, a lot of effort, and we love doing it. We love listening to the music. We love getting it out there for you. We love kind of the whole thing of it. So thank you, and we'll see you here in probably, I don't know if we'll do a box set announcement, I think we will, but definitely in a couple months for Dave's Picks 32. We're ending the year in style. Based on the show, we're pretty sure we're going to be doing, it's really good. I think you're going to like it. It's terrific. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.